There's an abandoned mansion on the outskirts of Maple Hollow, a small, forgotten town in the United States. The locals say it was built in the late 1800s by a wealthy industrialist who vanished with his entire family one winter night. No one knows why they disappeared, but rumors claim the mansion is cursed. Over the decades, the property changed hands multiple times, but no owner stayed for long. Strange sounds, vanishing pets, and missing workers drove them away. Eventually, the house was left to rot. For years, it became a place of dares for reckless teenagers and ghost hunters, many of whom were never seen again. Most people who live in Maple Hollow avoid even looking in that direction after sunset. The police refuse to search for missing people inside those walls. They know it's pointless. They know what everyone else fears to admit. Whatever is inside that house does not let anyone leave. It was nearly midnight when 4 college students, Ryan, Chris, Emily and Sarah, pulled their black SUV onto the cracked driveway of the mansion. They were urban explorers, thrill-seekers with cameras and confidence, chasing the rush of venturing into places others avoid. Their channel had been growing online, and they needed something shocking, something viral. The Holloway Mansion was perfect. Every forum warned about it. Every story ended the same way. People go in and they never come out. The mansion stood like a decaying beast against the night sky, its frame hunched and broken, windows gaping like blackened eyes. The moon above was pale and weak, barely casting enough light to reveal the outline of the sagging roof and the skeletal trees that surrounded it. The air was unnaturally still, thick with the scent of damp earth and something far worse. Something sweet and rotten, like the stench of death carried on a breeze that shouldn't exist. The 4 of them walked toward the front gate, its rusted bars twisted and bent as if something had forced its way out long ago. When Ryan touched the gate, it creaked open slowly on its own, though there was no wind to push it. They should have turned back then. They should have listened to that primal instinct clawing at the back of their minds. But instead they stepped inside, unaware that the earth itself seemed to shiver beneath their feet. The house loomed over them, its rotting timbers groaning in the silence. Shadows crawled along its surface as if alive, slithering across the walls in shapes that didn't belong to trees or clouds. The front door stood slightly ajar, like a mouth waiting to swallow them whole. They entered without hesitation, and the darkness embraced them instantly. Inside, the air was heavy, damp and cold enough to sting their skin. Dust coated every surface like a burial shroud, and long, tattered curtains hung limp from shattered windows. The floorboards sagged and creaked under their weight as if complaining about the intrusion. Along the walls, faded portraits watched them with eyes that seemed to follow every movement. The faces in the paintings were distorted, their smiles stretched too wide, their eyes dark and empty. Time had not destroyed these portraits. They had always looked like that. They began exploring, moving from room to room, documenting everything with their cameras. At first it was uneventful. Just broken furniture, peeling wallpaper and strange claw marks gouged deep into the wooden walls. But the longer they stayed, the more wrong everything began to feel. It wasn't just the silence. It was the way the house seemed to breathe. The faint vibration in the floorboards beneath their feet, the sense that something unseen was circling them in the dark. It started subtly, a door closing in the distance when no one was near it, a faint whisper that none of them could understand, echoing through the halls like a draught of cold air. Then came the smell, thicker, stronger, metallic and sweet, the undeniable scent of blood. When they reached the east wing, they found a door unlike the others. It was taller, wider, its surface dark and wet as though it had been freshly painted in something sticky. On the floor before it, a black trail stretched into the shadows, a thick, dried smear leading under the doorframe. It looked like something had been dragged inside, fighting all the way. The wood around the frame was splintered, clawed and stained deep red. They opened it. The stench that rolled out was suffocating, rot, meat and iron. Their flashlights cut into the gloom and revealed something that did not belong in a house, something that did not belong anywhere. The walls of the room were not walls at all, but layers of human skin stretched tight and nailed into place. Faces bulged from the surface, eyes rolling weakly, mouths opening and closing in silent screams, their lips stitched crudely with black thread. The floor glistened with pools of dark, thick blood, and in the centre of the room lay a mound of limbs, arms and legs, pale and twitching, as though they had been removed while their owners were still alive. The door slammed shut behind them. Panic set in then, raw and feral. They pounded on the door, but it would not open. The scratching started soon after, a faint, deliberate sound moving across the walls, then the ceiling, circling them like a predator in the dark. Their flashlights flickered and died one by one, until the only light was the trembling glow of a phone screen. And then they saw it. It moved in the shadows like a spider, but its limbs were far too long, bending at impossible angles. Its body was slick and black, glistening as though coated in oil or blood. Where its head should have been, there was only a gaping hole lined with jagged, spiraling teeth. And from within that pit came a sound that was not a voice, but many voices layered together. Men, women, children, all whispering the same words in unison. "You came here to see death." What happened next was not quick. The house did not allow quick deaths. The thing dropped from the ceiling, landing with a wet thud, and the room erupted with screams. One was torn apart in the first few seconds, their body broken and dragged into the shadows, leaving behind only a smear of blood across the floor. The others ran, crashing through another door that hadn't been there before, plunging deeper into the house's maze of shifting corridors. The walls pulsed now, throbbing like veins, slick with something warm that smeared across their hands as they clawed for escape. They found stairs leading down, and in their desperation they took them, spiraling into blackness that smelled of graves. Below they discovered a chamber that should not exist, carved deep into the earth. A cavern lined with bones, mountains of skulls stacked like trophies, rivers of blood flowing between them. Hanging from the ceiling were cages made of ribs and spines, and inside those cages writhed shapes that had once been human, their eyes pleading for an end that would never come. The thing followed them. It did not rush. It did not need to. The house would not let them leave. One fell into the blood and was dragged under by pale hands that burst from the surface, pulling them down into darkness. Another stumbled into a cage, and the bars closed like jaws, snapping shut around them as the others screamed. There were no doors now, only walls closing in, faces pressing from the inside, mouths opening wide as if to swallow them whole. The last survivor made it to the front door, at least what they thought was the front door. They could see the night beyond it, the safety of the trees, the SUV waiting on the cracked driveway. They reached for the handle, sobbing, and when their hand touched the wood, it dissolved into flesh. The door split open like a mouth and swallowed them in a single wet gulp. By morning, the SUV was still parked in the driveway, its engine cold, doors unlocked. Inside the house, there was no sign of the four who had entered, at least no sign anyone would recognize. But the portraits on the walls had changed. There were 4 new faces there now, their eyes wide with terror, their mouths stretched into bloody, eternal smiles. Locals found the camera a week later, lying in the grass near the gate. The footage was intact, though no one who has seen it will describe what it shows. The sheriff locked it away and resigned the next day. They say he doesn't speak anymore. The house still stands, waiting. And when the wind blows through the hollow, some claim they can hear voices, dozens of them, whispering, laughing softly, calling out for anyone foolish enough to listen. No one goes near Holloway Mansion after dark, not anymore. But sometimes in the dead of night, a car pulls into the driveway, headlights sweeping over the broken gate. And every time, the house opens its door. It always opens.